They taught you that civilization began in Egypt, that philosophy was born in Greece, that Rome brought law and order to the world. But what if all of that is just a rewritten story, just the visible tip of a much deeper iceberg? Look east, beyond the official history books, across the deserts of modern-day Iraq, lies a civilization that emerged, breaking every known rule: Mesopotamia. A name that sounds academic, but in truth, it's an unsolved enigma. Here, writing didn't evolve. It appeared suddenly. Cities didn't grow from huts. They were laid out like architectural blueprints. Law, astronomy, mathematics, and engineering all existed from the very beginning, not after thousands of years like we've always believed. No trial and error, no savage phase, only what feels like a quantum leap in intelligence, a strange fast forward in human evolution. And what's even stranger? No one talks about it. No one emphasizes it. No one teaches it. Why? Because it shatters the entire script modern history is built upon, that humans rose up from the mud and stone and didn't receive anything from elsewhere. If what happened in Mesopotamia is true, then every history book needs to be rewritten. And that terrifies people. Part 2, writing that appeared like magic. In most parts of the world, writing began slowly. A few scratches on stone, some marks to count cattle, grain, or water. Then, after centuries, those symbols gradually evolved into language, with meaning, with structure. But in Mesopotamia, everything started at the top. From the very first clay tablets in Uruk, around 5,000 years ago, cuneiform appeared with full grammar. Tenses, nouns, verbs, possessives, all included. It didn't just record numbers or names. It wrote laws, contracts, oaths, prayers, curses, a fully formed linguistic system with no drafts, no trial and error, no evolutionary phase, no crude hieroglyphs, no regional variants, no slow development like in Egypt, China, or the Maya. Writing in Uruk doesn't feel like something invented. It feels like something handed down. Archaeologists tried to link it to prehistoric clay tokens, used to count goods. They claimed the tokens evolved into pictograms, then into writing. But when you look closely, there's a problem. No transitional phase, no centuries of symbol testing. Just a sudden leap, from clay to cosmos-level communication. And here's the strangest part. From the beginning, this writing system served the authorities. Temples, granaries, merchants, all used it. It didn't rise from the people. It came from above. So the question is, who wrote it first? And more importantly, where did they learn it? Part 3. A city that came ready-made. When you picture the Stone Age, what comes to mind? Straw huts, dusty plains, people with spears gathering around fire under the stars. Now look at Uruk, the first true city of humankind. Not a village, not a camp, but a full-scale metropolis, with a population of 40,000, as large as medieval London, with 9 kilometers of defensive walls, irrigation canals, gridded housing districts, and massive temples aligned to constellations. Inside the city, everything was clearly zoned. Areas for worship, government quarters, granaries, residential blocks sorted by class, and even an astronomical observation center. Now ask yourself, how long would it take to build a city like that? 500 years? 1,000? Wrong. Uruk seems to have appeared almost fully formed within just a few generations. No gradual urbanization from village life like in Egypt or the Indus Valley. No signs of a proto-town, only a complete blueprint, built as if someone already knew exactly what they were doing. They knew how many granaries each district needed, how deep canals had to be to prevent flooding, which direction temples should face to align with the winter solstice sunrise. This wasn't evolution. This was state-level urban planning. And the most unsettling part, there's no prototype before Uruk. It didn't evolve from anything. It just appeared. Part 4. astronomy, and mathematics beyond their time. The ancient world, as we've been taught, was a world of spears, farming tools, and primitive beliefs. But in Mesopotamia, something doesn't fit. A level of scientific knowledge that far exceeded survival needs. The Sumerians knew about leap years. They knew the solar year wasn't exactly 365 days. They tracked lunar cycles, solar movements, and the orbit of Venus, using them to create agricultural calendars, ritual schedules, and even war timelines. No telescopes, no timekeeping machines, just the naked eye and clay tablets. And yet, they were able to follow Venus's 584-day cycle, a pattern so complex that even Renaissance astronomers got it wrong. They used a base 60 numerical system, one of the most advanced and elegant ever devised. Why not base 10 like our fingers? Because 60 is divisible by 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Perfect for timekeeping, circles, angles, and astronomy. And we still use it today. 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 360 degrees. We're not just inheriting their memory, we're running their logic every single day. But the real mystery goes even deeper. Some Babylonian astronomical texts, written by the heirs of Sumer, suggest knowledge of axial precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that takes 26,000 years to complete a full cycle. To detect that, you'd need uninterrupted observations over millennia. So the question is, how did they know? Did they really observe the skies for thousands of years themselves? Or did they inherit a body of astronomical data older than their entire civilization? Their math wasn't for counting grain. It was a language of the cosmos, precise, minimal, almost supernatural. And to this day, we still don't know who taught them how to do it. Part 5. Ziggurats. Bridges between heaven and earth. If the pyramids were the resting places of pharaohs, then the ziggurat, the architectural symbol of Sumer, was something entirely different. No mummies, no hidden corridors, no underground chambers or treasures. In fact, most of the interior is completely empty. Ziggurats were massive step towers, rising over 30 meters tall, built from millions of sun-dried bricks. No rooms, no furniture, just a small shrine at the top where, according to Sumerian myth, the gods would descend from the heavens. So the question is, if they weren't for burial, not for living, not for gathering crowds, why did they build them? Their locations weren't random. Ziggurats were aligned with stars, solstices, equinoxes, and most intriguingly, the cycle of Venus, the sacred planet in Sumerian belief. Their steep staircases weren't practical for climbing, but they were highly visible from above. Stepped form? It had no architectural predecessor. It appeared suddenly and almost identically across multiple cities. Ziggurats in Eridu, Nippur. Though hundreds of kilometers apart, they followed the same geometric ratios, as if every ziggurat was part of a coordinated network. Some modern researchers no longer call them temples. They call them communication devices with the sky. Not in a metaphorical sense, but as structures encoding astronomy, geometry, and possibly energy. The Sumerians believed the gods didn't live in the heavens forever. They descended, and the ziggurats were their landing points. Sounds like myth? But if they were merely spiritual monuments, why were they astronomically precise down to the last degree? Why invest such labor, resources, and intellect to build something that no one was allowed to enter? Maybe because ziggurats were never meant for humans. Part 6. Anunnaki, Memory or Reality. They were called the Anunnaki, a name that means those who came down from the heavens. Not metaphorical gods, like in Greek or Hindu mythology. The Anunnaki, as described in Sumerian texts, are shockingly specific. They had individual names, political roles, weapons and vehicles, and ruled cities like administrators. They weren't just worshipped. They were reported to, paid tribute, and worked with. According to Sumerian epics and inscriptions, It was the Anunnaki who granted humanity writing, agricultural tools, law codes, and social hierarchies. The Sumerians never claimed they invented these things. They said it clearly. Kingship was lowered from heaven. Power didn't rise, it was handed down. On the famous cylinder seal, VA243, the Sumerians engraved what appears to be a model of the solar system, the sun at the center, defying the geocentric belief of the time. Surrounded by 11 orbiting celestial bodies, including a 12th mysterious planet, known today by some as Nibiru. The question is, how did they know this 5,000 years ago when even Pluto wasn't discovered until the 20th century? Mainstream scholars call it a metaphor, but what kind of metaphor perfectly matches the modern layout of our solar system? Is the Anunnaki were just imaginary? Why do they have family lineages, power struggles, unique laws, symbols linked to specific planets? The Anunnaki aren't vague. They acted, resided, commanded, built, and then disappeared. So what were they? Priestly inventions? Prototypes of ancient elites? Or a preserved memory of a real contact event? One we still don't dare to face. Part 7. The Sumerian language. No family, no origin. Every language belongs to a family. English comes from Germanic roots. Latin is the mother of Italian, French, Spanish. Even ancient Egyptian is part of the Afro-Asiatic group. But Sumerian? No siblings, no parents, no Proto-Sumerian. It is a linguistic orphan, a complete isolate. From the moment it appeared, Sumerian was fully formed. Nouns, verbs, tenses, complex structures. No signs of a language under construction. It didn't evolve, it appeared. The Sumerians used it to write laws, hymns, star charts, land covenants, even medical and theological manuals. But here's the strange part. Sumerian wasn't the spoken language of the people for very long. Roughly 2,000 years after it emerged, the Sumerians had already switched to speaking Akkadian, yet they continued using Sumerian in rituals and administration. Just like Latin in medieval Europe, no longer spoken, but still written, studied, and passed down by the priesthood. So the question is, why preserve a dead language? Because to them, it was the language of the gods, a tongue that was bestowed, not invented, a sacred script from above. If writing is a tool, then Sumerian is more like pre-installed software, not self-learned, not organically grown, just installed and used. And to this day, despite thousands of deciphered tablets, linguists still cannot link Sumerian to any known language on Earth. So if it doesn't belong here, where did it come from? Part 8. A strange cycle. Collapse and reboot. No civilization lasts forever. Egypt fractured. Rome fell. Ancient India was wiped clean. When an empire collapses, it usually loses everything: writing, religion, architecture, governance. But in Mesopotamia, that didn't happen. When the Akkadian Empire fell to drought and war, its administration vanished. Yet a few centuries later, Ur-3 emerged, restoring nearly the entire old system. Then came Babylon, continuing Ur. Then Assyria, continuing Babylon. Each new civilization didn't innovate, they simply reinstated what came before. Administrative language, still ritual Sumerian. Mythology, still Enlil, Inanna, Marduk. Same roles, different names. Architecture, still ziggurats with the same dimensions, same foundations. Legal codes, still direct copies from earlier laws, word for word. No other period in history has this pattern. This wasn't evolution, it was backup and restore, as if someone or some group kept the source code of the civilization, and after every system crash, they reinstalled the exact same version. Archaeologists call this cultural conservatism. But that term doesn't explain the precision of how things were reestablished. So, who held the operating system of Mesopotamia? The priesthood? Lineages of temple scribes? Secret ancient orders? Or something even deeper? One thing is certain, Mesopotamia didn't die. It just waited to be reactivated. Part 9. The Lost Cities. Akkad, capital of the first empire in human history. The city where King Sargon the Great ruled, extending his domain from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. A metropolis once filled with tens of thousands of citizens, temples, treasuries, armies, and a postal system spanning all of Mesopotamia. And yet today, we haven't found Akkad. No gates, no walls, not even a single brick bearing its name. And Akkad is not the only mystery. Enoch, Sippar, Kesh, Amnan, Arab, hundreds of cities referenced in Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian tablets, repeated in epic tales and inscriptions. But beyond their names, no archaeological trace has ever been found. Why? Because over 80% of modern-day Mesopotamia remains unexcavated, much of it buried under layers of silt from the Tigris and Euphrates, or made inaccessible by war, landmines, and political instability. Even in already excavated sites like Eridu, and Nippur, dozens of deeper layers remain untouched, waiting below. And there's another hidden treasure. Over 500,000 cuneiform tablets have been unearthed, but most of them still untranslated. Many lie in museum basements, locked in archives, or simply ignored due to lack of funding. Among them could be lost maps, ancient instructions, first-hand accounts, missing pieces of the puzzle we've been struggling to complete. But for now, we're merely reading a few scattered pages from a colossal book that remains buried in the ground. Part 10. The Message from the Past. Maybe we've been looking the wrong way all along. Sumer wasn't the beginning. It was a reboot, a reset point after a civilization fell, silently, completely, and was erased from humanity's memory. So the real question is no longer, what did the Sumerians invent? But rather, what were they given? And by whom? The ziggurat, not a temple, but a memory device. Cuneiform, not an evolved language, but a coded information system. Star charts, law codes, astronomy, not primitive discoveries, but data from a lost era. Maybe they weren't meant for daily use, but for preservation. A living library waiting to be decoded. Perhaps the Sumerians didn't build a civilization, they protected one. And the message they left behind wasn't mythology, it was a warning that something once happened, that we once knew and then forgot. Today, surrounded by concrete, computers, and countdown clocks, we still live within systems they once initiated. The question is, do we even remember where we learned them from? Maybe what the Sumerians left us wasn't technology, wasn't writing, but a whisper. Don't forget, before it all restarts again.